Hello my friends, welcome back to Vlogmas. Today is December 7th, starting a new vlog today, and look at my sweatshirt. I know, I get a lot of sweatshirts, okay? It's like, I literally live in sweatshirts and leggings all the time. Look at it, just look at it. If you were an 80s baby and you also loved horses, then you recognize all of them. But I'm so excited to get it. Let's see if I can move this. I don't know, I'm sitting at my dining room table instead of at the island in my kitchen because, one, I'm pulling a mom power move because my child, my oldest child at home, my 17-year-old boy, has left all his stuff on the chair where I usually sit. And because I want him to be a man who picks up after himself, I refuse to move it. So here I am right now. Anyways, I'm sorry. I'm just in a silly, goofy mood today. I'm having my lunch after I film this clip. It's lunchtime. So I got like extra roast turkey breasts, or not roast, I got extra bone-in turkey breasts during Thanksgiving, and I just roasted one the other day. I think I mentioned it. And then I had roasted potatoes and air-fried carrots. It's delicious. So, well, friends, since yesterday, I finished the Elizabeth O'Rourke book. I finished The Devil Gets His Due. I did not like it. I did not like it. I was so utterly disappointed with this book. The last two releases from this author have been huge disappointments for me, and I feel very sad about that. Also, I feel like they're a little similar in vibe. They both have antagonistic relationships and kind of jerky heroes and heroines who are tough to love. And I want to be clear, I love a woman who is strong and who maybe is a little cold and who can be tough to love, right? That was something that I really loved about When Heroes Fall, the Gianna Darling. I loved that heroine. I thought she was fantastic. I really, really loved her. But this heroine specifically didn't work for me because, if you didn't know, the premise of this book is basically we have our doctor heroine who is a sleep-around gal and is also very, very fond of self-deprecating humor, or the humor that she uses seems like it's offensive humor. Like she's trying to make a joke before other people can call her out on stuff. And that just reeks of insecurity. And so I was really, really hoping that we would see that sort of addressed and she would, you know, because that as a character trait in and of itself isn't bad, but I didn't like her character because I just truly felt like she was using this facade, this mask the whole time and never let the hero get close. And I feel like he very much did the same thing. Both of these characters, both hero and heroine, didn't work for me at all. The hero was misogynistic to the extreme. Like, you want to talk about a sexist hero, like, that is exactly what he is. He was sexist, he was demanding, he was rude to her. Another rude hero. Like, I cannot with any more of these rude curse word men. Like, I am tired of it. I don't want to read about men who are dicks all the time. Truly, I do not. Please don't demonetize me, YouTube. But I was like, initially, from the get-go, I was like, he's going to be hard for me to love. I'm not sure if I'm going to like him at all. And I didn't. I never ended up warming up to him. I felt like neither of these characters showed really any development or growth until, and this is another pet peeve of mine, the very, very end. The very end is when you finally see some realization and some growth. The third act conflict pissed me off so bad. It was so... It wasn't it was unnecessary. It was an unnecessary, cruel plot twist at the end. I don't even know plot twist. Third act conflict. And it just, I feel like, okay, so I'm sorry if I'm rambling. This book pissed me off so bad. I gave it 2 stars, and I feel like it's being very generous because this book made me so mad because the potential for this story, this particular type of story where we have sort of opposites attract, antagonistic, hot nerd, doctor making jokes all the time, wants to sleep around, and they have multiple one-night stands, and then they end up married in Vegas and pregnant, and then they have to live their life, or they choose to live their life amicably in the same house as they're waiting for this baby to be born, and they stay married, and like the hope of them falling in love is there. And I really truly felt like this is not necessarily a super unique concept in romance. I did feel like this author, I've read 5 of her books now, I've loved 2, I've hated 3. So I put her on my best authors, or new authors to me, and I'm kind of having regrets because the last 3 books I've read from her have pissed me off. So we have that unique setup. And I truly felt like this author has the capability, has the talent, has the skill, has the range to make this really good. Like, I really felt like she could really do something here. However, she did not. There was like, because their relationship, honestly, even like their one night stands were off page, it always just started with them like waking up. So you never got to see any on page chemistry. They didn't really have any connection, any chemistry, other than like they would have these flashes of remembrance from the nights that they were together that they couldn't remember because they were drunk. But it never evolved beyond that was a really hot moment. And then like, ooh, I'm next to him and I'm remembering this hot moment. It just felt very, very shallow, which is extremely frustrating because of the subject matter of this book. The subject matter in here needs depth and range, and that was not here at all. And I'm pretty pissed about it. And maybe that's my fault because I've come to associate this author with depth and range, and no. This was dumb, stupid. I hated the hero, I hated the heroine, I hated everything about it. So, like I said, 2 stars. Because, okay, so the main reason it's 2 stars is because initially, the first third was compelling. I was into the story, I wanted to see how it was going to pan out. And then when we just kept having the same type of interactions with our hero and heroine, and no growth, no development, no tension, no chemistry, no romance, I very quickly got bored, and I was just sort of like listening to get done with it because I was just so upset. And then we get to the 3rd act conflict, and I was like, are you freaking kidding me? This hero actually did that? I hated it. I am disappointed, and I am sorry for being so angry about it if you loved this book, but I honestly found there to be nothing redeemable about this story, and it was just an experience of frustration in reading it the whole time. So I'm sad I used an Audible credit for it, but c'est la vie. Here we are. So anyway, I am now reading, after I finished Anastasia, I really wanted to keep going in fantasy, and I had this on a TBR a few months ago. This is a YA fantasy romance. I'm not sure if it's a fantasy romance, YA fantasy romance, or just YA fantasy. However, I 100% picked this up because it was pitched, or people were saying that this was like Full Metal Alchemist, Nietzsche and Mustang, the romance we never got in Full Metal Alchemist. And if you didn't know, I love anime, but only a very specific type of character-driven, great storytelling anime, which I feel like Full Metal Alchemist is. But I'm very excited. So I'm currently reading this. I'm this far in, just barely. I am listening to the audio. I had it checked out from my library, and my hold runs out in a few days. So I picked this up next, specifically because I don't want my hold to pass up because there are people waiting for it. So I'm going to read this. So far, this is giving me really excellent atmospheric vibes. I really like the characters. I like the setup. It's basically our heroine's mom is a very famous alchemist, and she goes missing at the time of where they're living. This wild hunt is coming around, and so she's, you know, the town is getting set up for this wild hunt. This book just feels like very magical, and the hero, I don't even know if I should call them hero, the male main character is wanting to train to be an alchemist under her mother, so he goes to her house, and she's like, my mom's not even here, and he's like, oh, well, can you train me? And so that's what happens. So I'm liking it a lot. It's really fun. I'm not sure that, I'm really curious to see how I feel upon it as I get deeper into it, because I'm just barely into it, still very much setting up the story, but so far I'm liking it. So all right, that's what I'm reading. Let's do our tea tasting. I'm sorry that window keeps coming behind me and is probably distracting. I'll have to have my child move his clothes so I can sit over there. So today's tea is Earl Grey something. I threw the thing away, unfortunately. It's good. So I think this is Earl Grey Bella Luna. It was in the B-roll if you watched that. And it has like it has a citrusy Earl Grey vibe, but it also has like a coconutty vibe, and I just really, really like it. It's very mellow and very like floral. So if you like floral teas, I think you would love this. I like the blend of floral and citrus in teas. I think it's really good. So, but in general, I'm a fan of Earl Grey tea. So, all right, that's all for today. I am going to finish reading, eat my lunch, continue working, and I'll check back in with you tomorrow.
trim a tree, I put up a star. I wear a sweater, it's down to my knees, and you will kiss the freckles on both of my cheeks, and we will sing our own Christmas song. So when you wait, there'll be snow in the sky. You sing so softly, yeah, only we hear about the love you promised for all of our years, and we will sing our own Christmas song.
Hello my friends, welcome back to Vlogmas. Today is December 8th, and let's go ahead and do the tea tasting first, and then we'll talk about what I'm reading, because I love this tea flavor, and I almost keep forgetting to do the tea, which is like the most important part. So today I have Honeybush Banana Nut, which is one of my favorite flavors. It's just like, it just like reminds me of like Sunday morning breakfast. It's kind of like mapley, nutty, banana-y. And I know like banana tea sounds weird, but there's just something about this blend particularly that I really, really love. It's so good. I have like a whole bag of it up there that I bought last year after I had tried these teas because I just love them so much. Okay, 10 out of 10 on the tea. So let's talk about what I'm reading. So yesterday I said I was going to start A Far Wilder Magic, and I did. And I am reading it. I'm listening to the audio while I'm working, and I'm about 40% of the way into the audiobook, I believe. And it's a long audiobook, which kind of surprises me because this is not a long book. It's 372 pages, but also like the font size is very large. But I don't know how I feel about it yet. I have been tempted to DNF it temporarily. This is definitely a book that I want to read. It's not at all that I'm hating it. I just am not sure that it's what I'm looking for. You know, I feel like because I've come off of a string of so many either slightly disappointing to hugely disappointing books other than Anastasia. I mean, I'm specifically talking about audiobooks right now because that's just a different type of reading experience for me. Like when I read physically, it's usually at night, I'm in bed, and I just read for hours, you know, and I don't sleep, which is not good. But when I'm listening to audiobooks, I sort of like, I don't judge them differently, but it's like a different type of reading experience. So even though I loved Anastasia, loved that reading experience, like I'm really missing out on having a great audiobook reading experience. And this one is really, I don't know. Anyway, I was really tempted to DNF it because I just sort of felt like, I don't know that this is the vibe I really want. It's not 100% captivating me, but there's also nothing about this that is turning me off at all. I mean, there is one thing, I'll get to that in a minute. But also, I am intrigued with the plot where it's going so far. The characters are interesting, and yeah. So I talked a little bit about this in my earlier clip, but this is basically the heroine, or the female main character. Her name is, heck, I don't even know her name. Her name is Margaret. Her name is Margaret, and her mother is like a really famous alchemist, and the comparisons between this book and Full Metal Alchemist are just huge, like even down to the different races of people that are created that are very clearly a play on, I don't know if play is the right word, that could be the right word. They're very clearly like in similitude of Jewish people, and I know this isn't a race, but like Catholic people, like even down to what the Catholic religion is called. I think it's like it's not Catholicism, but it's something that sounds very similar. And so there is, of course, this is also a theme in Full Metal Alchemist where anti-Semitism is happening in here towards the people who are very clearly supposed to be in similitude of Jewish people. So, I mean, that theme is echoed in Full Metal Alchemist, and I do feel like, okay, so I feel like I'm really jumbling talking about this book because it is slightly, not necessarily confusing, but a little bit complicated because they have the different races and the different religions and the different groups of people who are all involved in this hunt for the Hala, which is this, not a magical creature, but this is the thing that I think is interesting and that is most compelling me to continue reading this, is that the two groups of people that are featured in here are sort of split on what they believe the Hala to be. One of them believes it to be a god, and another one believes it to be something that needs to be killed. And that's very interesting because that's how the two people who are teaming up, you have to have a team of two to join this hunt, are teaming up to bring down the Hala. It's the last of its kind. It has been going across the country and killing animals, and it's a little bit eerie for sure, killing animals and causing devastation, and, you know, it's problematic. And I find that I find that whole concept really fascinating of you have two groups of people who have their own religious beliefs, and that's manifested in what they believe should be done with this creature that is very much causing devastation, but other people believe it to be a god, so they don't want it to. It's just, that to me is really fascinating and interesting. But I feel like that's sort of what is not working a little bit for me, and that's because the overall message of that, the overall message of, like, these two, I'm going to say religions, like, not necessarily warring, but they don't like each other, like, they're cruel to one another, there's issues there with the two religions. It's very clear that the author is telling she is sharing a message with a story instead of sharing a story that has a message, you know what I mean? When I interviewed Kennedy Ryan recently, she talked about how when she comes up with an idea for a book, she first thinks of what she wants to talk about, like what issue, basically, what issue does she want to tackle? And I love that she said that, because I think when you read her books, the theme, the issue she wants to tackle is very evident there, but I feel like it's never, like, spoon-fed to you. It feels very much like you are reading a story that also has a message that isn't just sort of like being shoved down your throat. And this isn't being shoved down your throat, but it is very obvious that this author is sharing a message that is told through story. And that's just a personal pet peeve of mine that I talk about that all the time. No matter what the message is, I'm just never here for that. Even, you know, like feminist historical romances that in a certain vein don't feel like it's a story. It's not a feminist story. It's a story with a feminist message that they really, you know, and like, I love feminism, I do. So I am very aware of that in this book, and so I feel like that's kind of making it difficult for me to fully enjoy it. And like, I feel like this clip is very chaotic. Hold on. Because I wasn't really sure how I wanted to talk about this. I wasn't really sure about what my thoughts were. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to keep reading it. Because I picked this up, truthfully, because of the fan fiction romance I heard that it had from a couple that I wanted to happen in Full Metal Alchemist. And it's not really happening. So I was hoping that the fantasy elements would be enough to sort of carry it through. And it is. But it's also, like, I can tell this is not going to be something that really fulfills me. And so, I don't know, y'all. I feel like I don't really know how I feel about this one. Something I do think this book is doing really well, however, is, and this is something that I think is interesting about YA in general, and why I feel like it appeals to all readers of all ages, and if it doesn't appeal to you, it may be because you are struggling with this concept internally, and maybe you're not aware of it, and maybe this is me reaching or overthinking, but this is heavy with a theme of grief of childhood. Not grieving the death of someone, but the grief of being on the brink of adulthood and realizing that the family life you had as a child is no longer there. That you are not a child anymore, and you're kind of about to be on your own. And I think that's compounded here by the fact that Margaret, her mother, has been missing, and she's been like suppressing this down, these emotions down, that her mother abandoned her. And it's a conversation between the two of these characters that made her realize how devastating it was to her that her mom left, and that she shouldn't have just abandoned her. And so that whole concept of feeling like I'm 41, and I very vividly remember feeling that when I was about 17, almost 18, and 18, where I felt just this overwhelming sense of grief that, and maybe that was compounded by the fact that I was the youngest, and so my sister had moved out, but I had this overwhelming sense of grief that my childhood was forever gone, that my childhood family was gone, and even though my parents were still there, it was different. And like, there was a scene in here where she's talking about this moment that she had as a child with her family, where she felt safe and protected and they were happy. And I'm like on the verge of tears talking about that right now, because not because I'm grieving that in my life, although I still feel like haunts of that a little bit, but because I'm going through that as a parent with my children. So my middle boy is 17. This is his senior year. And I can see that in him very much, where he wants to sort of like hold on to things in his childhood and things that we used to do together when he was small. And it's just like this ache that you feel. This is one of those human experiences that you feel when, maybe not everybody feels it, but I've felt it very keenly, and I know that my son has too, where you just are very aware that time is passing, this magical childhood that you had, and I know not everyone has that, is over, and now it's time to be an adult, be a grown-up. And I don't know, it's just, so that feels very melancholy and very tender for me specifically, and I feel like she's handling it really well. And I think that aspect, what a relatable human experience that is for most people, I think that is one of the main reasons why coming of age and YA books specifically hit with readers of all ages. So I think that it's doing that really, really well. So as you can see, 11 minutes later, I have complicated feelings about this book. And I am going to finish it because I want to see what happens. I want to see if she finds her mother. I want to see what happens between their relationship. And it is beautifully written. It's very beautifully written. I wish that like the time period was pinned down a little bit more, because it feels sort of nebulous. It definitely feels like it's in the not too distant past. And I think on the back it says something like 1920s inspired world, but it's not ever really clearly stated in there. So anyway, I didn't mean to ramble so much about this book, but I'm gonna continue on with my workday, and then I will update you when I finish this. So thanks for watching. Thanks for watching this very chaotic, rambly clip, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hello friends, this is gonna be I didn't bring my tripod. I didn't plan on filming a clip because I just didn't plan on filming a clip, and then I ended up having to go to pick up a Christmas gift for my son that wasn't going to get delivered. So I had some time, like when I was just driving to go pick that up, where I was like, you know, I was listening to voice messages from friends, and instead of like my audiobook, and I just felt like, well, Jen was talking to me, and I was telling her, I was like, I don't know if I want to DNF this. Like, I don't dislike the book. I don't dislike A Far Wilder Magic at all. But it also just isn't giving me what I need right now. And I feel like this is one of the problems that this is one of my theories about why I've been hit with so many reading slumps this year. And one of them is because I did reading vlogs every single week. And in order for me to like read enough books to talk about in a whole week, I felt like I had to have starting books and finishing books. And so if I DNF'd a book, then what was I going to vlog about, you know? And that's something that I feel like is happening right now with Vlogmas, where I'm like, okay, I ranted about a book and I talked for 10 minutes about a book that I wasn't even sure if I was enjoying or wanted to continue reading. And what else am I gonna say? What else am I gonna read to talk about, you know? And I feel like when I did like a end of year reading plans video, one of the things that I talked about was the books I needed to finish reading. And someone said, you're the only booktuber I've ever heard say that they don't finish books. And I do feel like on BookTube, or if you have any type of like bookish social platform, there is a certain pressure to continuously be reading so that you can have stuff to talk about. Because if you're not reading, you don't have stuff to talk about in your videos. And that's what I have run into in this vlog for Vlogmas, where I'm vlogging every day. And my life is not that interesting. And I'm not a lifestyle vlogger. I'm a book vlogger. And if I don't feel like I have something to say about a book, I'm not the type of reader or reviewer who just reads a book quickly and says it was good, 3 stars. You know, like, I like to get in there and talk about specific things. And I did that with this book. But I'm definitely feeling like the books I've read this month so far have not been hitting for me, except for Anastasia. That's the only one that did. And I need a good audiobook. So I'm going to DNF this. And therefore I'm going to finish this vlog right here. And I'm going to pick something else. I'm going to go through a couple of my audiobook choices. I'm feeling like a historical romance. Jen put one together for me that she wants me to read. I think I may do that. But I'm going to let myself just listen to a few chapters. And if I don't feel engaged, I'm going to DNF it and start something else. Because, I mean, I do make bookish content. But first and foremost, reading needs to be fun for me always. And I don't know. I'm not the type of reader to just power through books just to say that I've read them. Like, I just can't do that. So anyways, I'm going to end this vlog here. Thank you so much for watching. The next one, hopefully I will have some really great book news to share with you, or something that I've read that's amazing, or you'll be on the journey with me. So I'll see you all in my next vlog, which I will start tomorrow.